Hey, what's up coders? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see how to bring Flutter to the web, and to demonstrate this I have created a very simple page which is called the Eurorail page, which displays the cities in Europe in the grid format with the price and the book button. And I have divided into three things, like if it's the large screen it displays 3 grid, if it's the medium 2, and if it's the small screen it displays a single grid. That's what you see here. And before moving on to the demo of this page, I would also be covering the step-by-step process involved in the installation of Flutterweb, and also the common issues that you come across while doing this installation. It could be the path, or it could be the version, or what command to be used. So I'm going to show you all these details in brief. All right, so moving on to the demo, this is how it looks on the web page, and you can see that it's running on my local host. And this is how it looks on the large screen with 3 grids. And as and when I try to reduce the screen size, you can see that it displays 2, and when I reduce a bit more, you can see that it comes to single grid. And there's also another difference, is that I've added this bottom navigation bar only for the small screen. The moment I make it to a medium screen or a large screen, you will not find the bottom navigation. You would find just the menu items on the top right corner. So this is also something that I've implemented, and I'll show you how to do it. So just to demonstrate it again, so you can see it as 2, and then it's 1. So this is responsive. Now the same thing I have, the same code, I have used it on my Flutter for mobile, and you can see that the code works absolutely fine without any issues. It's the same code. The only difference that I had was in the package detail, that is Flutter underscore web for the web version, and just the Flutter/material dot for the mobile version, and your pub spec file changed. That was the only difference, and I did not make any change in the code. Fine on your mobile and your web version. Alright, so before even I start with the installation process and the implementation of this page, it's always nice to know something about Flutterweb. So Flutterweb is different from Flutter Mobile, and the plugins are not yet ready. It's still in the initial stage, the technical preview. The APIs are not yet implemented, and it might run sometimes a bit slow. And this is only supported on Chrome and not any other browser. So I've tried on Explorer, no, it doesn't work. It works only on Chrome. The goal looks like they want to support the first tier platform and Flutter SDK along iOS and Android. So keeping this in mind, so it's just a testing phase, just to get your hands dirty to see how it works on web. And yeah, so this is about a few details about Flutter, but still if you want to find out more about it, there are articles written by the Google team, and these are some of the sample apps that you can find. The web app that they have created using Flutterweb design. You can see that it works on the web and it is responsive as well. So there you go. So if you want to submit any of your apps, you could definitely check out this link, and I'll add it in the description below. All right, so moving on to the installation part. First, open this particular URL, which is the GitHub. I'm going to add the link in the description. Open this URL, clone this repository. So when you're cloning, make sure that you create a separate folder called Flutter_web, and then clone this repository. So once you're done with it, this gives you a lot of information as to what Flutter for web is, the limitations, some support, testing, and also it gives you the link of the sample where I spoke about it a couple of minutes back, about the sample web pages created. So they've also mentioned about it. So first thing, clone the repository, and then you need to set the path. So sometimes setting the path is difficult, because if it's Mac, it's different. Windows, if it's entirely different. So I found this article where there's this one person who clearly explained as to what are the path that you need to set. So this is the link, and I'm going to leave a link in the description as well. And sometimes the web dev do not work, so he has given the clear path what has to be set. And also he's left a link to another article which says how to get started with it. So this is one very mandatory process that you need to follow in order to get your path set. So after you set your path, Flutter to the recent version or at least 1.54, which is the mandatory. If it's below that, you would not be able to get your Flutter web working. So that's also another important point. And also you need to run the web dev package. So when you're running this, this is what is basically used to build your Flutter web projects. So it has a couple of steps for Visual Studio or IntelliJ, depending on your editor that you are using. All right, so once you have cloned the repository, set the path, then updated your Flutter package, once you come to your Visual Studio or IntelliJ, you would get some updates stating, would you like to activate the stagehand package? There was a pop-up, and then it also says, do you want to activate web dev? So make sure that you update all those package, and then when you try to create a new project, you would get this Flutter new web projects. So all you have to do is just click on this and give a name of the project. So when you type a name, or when you give a name for your Flutter project, it will also ask you the location of the folder. So ensure that you click on it, and once you're done with it, you would get these auto-generated files. That is the lib and the web. So when you have something called web, that means it's Flutter web, because sometimes you have this confusion when you're working on the web and the mobile. The structure looks the same. The main difference lies in the web folder and the pub spec files. Based on this, that means it is Flutter web. So it would take a few seconds to get everything set, because initially when you create, you would get a lot of errors showing that this package is missing and it's not recognized. So just give some time for the Flutter to get upgraded, and then you are good to go in building the application. So this is how it looks. So let's start creating the Eurorail page. All right, so moving on to the implementation part, let's understand the structure of this page, and then it would be easy for us to build it. So if you look at it, it's a grid system which has each individual cards have an image, text, a price, and a button, and a menu item. And the key difference lies is when I try to minimize this, you can see that there is a navigation, bottom navigation appearing, and there is just a single leading icon here. And when I expand it, when I increase the screen size, you can see that the navigation hides, and you can see the other three icons popping up. So first, let's focus on how to get this done. I'm not going to emphasize or explain in detail how to create this, because we've been doing this in Flutter Mobile, how to create cards or grid. So the main focus here is to show you how to make this page responsive. What is that factor that you need to consider or to show or hide if your screen width changes. All right. So first thing, let's create a model class which is called the place dot dot, because it has a few details like the image, text, and the price. So let's add those details here. And then I'm going to create this a list which holds all these values. So it's a list of constructor, place constructor with the details. So there you go. It's nothing but the first parameter is the image, and the second is the title, and then the details. The last parameter is the price. So I've used this Unicode. So I'm going to leave a link in the description how to use the Unicodes depending on the currency symbol. I've used a euro symbol, so that's what this is. And the rest of the string is the price value. So this way I've added a couple of other details here. So there you go. So you can see that I've added a few more details. So now your model class is ready. Now let's move on to the main class. and here I'm importing this particular class, and then we will move on to our app bar. All right, so app bar, first thing you have the app bar, which is a very common template that I always follow while building the Flutter apps. And as of now, first thing, if you look at the structure of the page, it has a menu button, it has a text, and then it has these icons. So this is the leading icons. Now this is going to change when my screen size is decreased. So this remains same for all the screen size. So this remains the same. So let's keep this constant, and this part I'll add it into another custom widget. All right, so moving on to the action part, I'm going to create a custom widget. Okay, so now let's create this custom leading action. All right, so here, this is the interesting part and a very important part. This is where I'm going to check if my screen size is the large screen or the medium or the small screen. So depending on your use case, you can use it. So for that, I'm going to use my media query, and then I'm going to say of context.size. If it is greater than 800, then I want to use a particular format or a particular widget or particular properties. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to use a row, because if you look at the leading action, it is in the row of icons. So I'm just going to use a row widget and then place icon buttons one below the other. And just to give some spacing, I add a sized box with a width of 10. Now I'm going to use the same icon button property and create 3 of them, and I'm just going to enclose all of them. And so here I'm going to use train icon, and the other one I'm using a portrait. There you go. And I'm going to remove this sized box. Yeah, so we have indicated that if my screen size is greater than 800, then I want to display a row. If not, I want to display a single button. That is what is being displayed here. So if it is less than 800, then I want my leading icons to just display one single icon. So here it could be a settings or a search icon, depending on your use case. So here I'm going to just add another icon button with a single icon. So there you go. So this is what actually decides. I think I forgot to mention which property I'm going to check for. This one is the width property. So I'm going to check if my width is greater than 800, then display a row of icon. If not, just display one single icon. So this is about the leading action. Then we will focus now on the body section and then the bottom navigation bar. So first thing, let's write the body, and let's give a simple container. Well, let's keep it empty for the time being, and then we will focus on the bottom navigation bar. And for this also, I'm going to create a custom navigation bar. And now let's create this bottom navigation menu. So in this also, we are going to check if the size of the screen is greater than or less than 800, depending on it. Yeah, I want to highlight another point. If you want to know what's your screen width, what point it is for testing, all you have to do is open the browser, click on inspect. So the moment you open this, and if you drag, you get the width and height highlighted here. So then you know at which position you are scrolling, so that you know how you want your screen to look. So if it's at 800, then you can see that my icon changes. So there you go. So more than 800, you see these 3 icons coming, and I have 2 grids instead of 1 grid. So all you have to do is just click on inspect, and you can see the height and the width property displayed here. So depending on that. So now let's create the bottom navigation menu. as I created my custom leading action, so I'm just going to create the same way. Size, and then again I'm going to check for my width, and this time I'm going to check if it is less than or equal to 800 because I wanted a navigation bar in my small screen. So I'm going to say if it is less than 800 or equal to 800, then I want a bottom navigation bar. This is the simple usual step that is involved in creating a bottom navigation bar. Array of items, and inside the item array you have navigation, bottom navigation bar, items. All right, so what I've done here is I have checked for the first condition. If this is true, then I display a bottom navigation bar. If not, then what am I supposed to display? If my screen is greater than 800, I don't want anything to display. So for that, for time being, I'm just using a sized box, or I could use a simple container also. So the choice is yours. So this is what decides whether to display your bottom navigation or not. So it's simple. All you have to do is use media query. This is not the only approach to use. You could also use a separate file to check if your screen is large or medium or small, and depending on that you can pass those properties here and display different files or different widgets. So there are different ways to do it, but this is a very simple approach just to make your page responsive. So now we have covered the bottom navigation and the custom leading action. So let's build this and see how it looks. All right, so now to build this particular Flutter web app, all you have to do is type this command. And for some of them this works, and for a couple of them the other one works, which is this one. For me this works, so I'm just going to use it. I have to click on this, and the moment I do it, you can see that it's serving the web on this particular link. So all you have to do is just click on Control Enter, and you would have your page displayed. So as of now we have just built this with three leading icons, and if I minimize the screen, make it responsive, you can see that you can see the navigation, bottom navigation bar, and you can see that the navigation disappears and this part appears. So now let's move on with the construction of the grid part, and I'll also show you how to display the grid in 3, 2, and 1 depending on your screen size. All right, so moving on to the body section. So here I have a very simple container, and inside the container I would be using a custom scroll view, and inside this custom scroll view I'm going to use the sliver grid so that I can insert individual city cards inside it, and also show you how to display the 3, 2, and 1 grid depending on your screen size. So inside this I'm going to add another property called slivers, and inside this I'm going to add another property sliver, and here comes the sliver grid with a count. And I've also mentioned another property, child aspect ratio. When I complete the building of this entire page, then I'll show you the importance of the child aspect ratio, how it makes my cards display wider or narrower depending on this aspect ratio. So as of now I'm keeping it as 1.74, and then my cross axis count. Now this is where your responsive thing comes, whether to show a 3 or 2 or 1. So I'm using again the media query, which is really handy to check your screen width or height, and here I'm going to use the width, and then I'm going to check if it is the large screen. So in my case I'm using 1400. So if it is greater than or equal to 1400, then I'm going to say use 3 grids. That is your sliver grid count. So 3 counts I want. If not, again I'm going to check if it is the medium screen or if it's the small screen again. So I'm going to check if it is greater than or equal to 800, which is the medium screen. Then I'm going to say display 2 grid. If not, display 1 grid. So this is the only magic that actually makes the web page look responsive by showing 3 grids or 2 grids or 1 grid. So this is the point, and what to display, that is what we would be adding here, which is nothing but a simple card. And also I'm just going to add some spacing, which is like 2. So, and inside this children property, this is where I'm going to add my places. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a sliver grid, and the count depends on the screen size, whether it's 4400 large, medium or small. And then what it has to display is, through my model class, get those list values and pass it to another widget. So now we will be creating this widget, and creating of this widget, it's simple. It's nothing but the card with an image, and below that the title and the subtitle and the button. So there you go. So I've created the place container widget, and I've passed the model class in it. So it's a simple card. The reason I've used a card is to get that grid effect. Now inside this card, I've created a column widget, and then I've stacked it with a container and added an expanded. And so first thing, I'm using a stack. Now why am I using a stack is, if you look at the output, you can see this yellow label over the image. So to get that, you use a stack widget. So first thing, the container, which is the image. So this part is the image, and this one I'm getting it from my model class. So all I'm saying is place dot place image. Now if you look at this place image, it's nothing but these images. Now then after that, I have another container which is for the price. So this is my stack. So I have a stack with the main image, and over the image I have the yellow price container, and here I have the price. And then after that, I have a list style. The list style is for the place name, details and the book button. So this is the simple card layout, and when you see here, this is how it looks. And if I decrease, you can see that it comes to 2 grid, and then you can see it comes to 1 grid, and then you can see the navigation, bottom navigation bar. Now I was talking about the child aspect ratio. Now if you look at this, it looks fine. Now if I change this to 1, you could see that it looks little enlarged, and there is some kind of spacing here. There you go. So you can see that it gets enlarged. So just to avoid that, I was using 1.74. So depending on your use case, maybe you might have few more details about this particular picture. So in that case, 1 will be absolutely fine. But if I have to expand, you can see that there's a lot of spacing available here. So just to avoid that, you could see that all I do is just update it, and you can see the change updated immediately. Create a responsive web page on Flutterweb using the simple image, text and few buttons. And now the same code, I'm going to add it on my Flutter mobile, and I'm not making any change, and the only change I make would be the package and the pub spec, and you can see the same code running. So I'll create that and I'll show you how it looks. Just to show you the difference, I've created 2 projects. One is for the web and one is for the mobile. The code remains the same. So if you look at the code here, for say example, my container, the body section, and if you look here as well, there you go. So it has the same content available as in web. The only difference, as I mentioned, is for the web you would use Flutterweb, and for the mobile I'll have to use Flutter. And the other difference is the pub spec, entirely different. And also you can identify that with the web project, a folder called web, and that's how it picks up it in your browser with the index.html and main.dart, and you won't find that in your mobile version. And when I build this is what you see. So it's a similar one like your web page in the mobile version. So that's how flexible I could get my code running on both the platforms, that is either on my web or on my mobile. And it is pretty straightforward, just a single code. Yeah, so I'm going to leave the code of this entire project in my GitHub link. Yeah, so this is how you bring a Flutter to the web and create the simple responsive page on the web, and at the same time build it on mobile. I've also added all these details in my GitHub, where I've created two separate folders for mobile and web, and you can check the link where both the code remains the same, and I've also added other details. So if you find this informative, please do give it a like and do subscribe and do fork this repo, work on it, try different things, and if you have any issues, just leave a comment. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you.